I'd like to call this September 12th, 2022 Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. Adam, you call the roll.
Miss Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Mrs. Kim Conklin.
Here.
Mr. Greg Feller.
Here.
Mrs. Jill Johnson.
Here.
Right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Dr. Motley, it looks like we are with you with the presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Tonight's superintendent's report is a collaborative effort as we take this opportunity to present an overview over a 5-year Sylvania Schools strategic plan. So tonight I will begin and then we will pass it on to the different strategic goal areas or target areas. It will be on the screen, sir. And some of this for our Board of Education members you've heard or are somewhat familiar with. We covered some of this information on opening day, but we thought it was a good opportunity to share with not just our school board formally, but also those who may be watching at a later time. So we are going to begin with our district mission, and this is also, I should say, this plan has not been voted on at this point in time. We will ask for board approval at our next board meeting. We wanted to make sure that you had ample time to review and have feedback and provide any suggestions that you may have, and that's also from those that are internal and external stakeholders in relationship to our school community. So why do we exist? Every good organization, I should say great organization, has a mission, and we took some language actually from our current mission statement. So we felt that it was part of it was still very much in alignment with where we saw ourselves going in the future. Why do we exist? We educate, empower, and inspire students to reach their full potential as lifelong contributors to a global society. Next, our vision. What is the ideal future state for Sylvania Schools? And we have the vision that Sylvania Schools will be the leading school district in Ohio. We chose to say, instead of saying number one, that so often can be aligned with assessment data or some type of data point, we look at our work much more broad in scope, and we like to take a look at both qualitative and quantitative aspects of a district. We want to be leading in the state with our programs, with our services, with our instruction, with our athletics, with our performing arts, so forth and so on. And we also have several belief systems, core beliefs that we feel will really structure our work. It's kind of the application, our philosophy, and how we will found or base our decisions as we move forward. The first is a focus or a core belief in the whole child, and that means educating the whole child, supporting the child that we serve academically, physically, social, and emotionally, in addition to mental health and well-being. We would like to support the style and will support the child in a safe environment where each student may achieve their own personal excellence. The Board of Education and members of the team have heard this before. We had the opportunity to have students involved in the development of our strategic plan, and I have to tell you that it was so nice to have them at the table, to have a student voice, and they were really honed in on personal excellence and how that is defined. Next, in Sylvania Schools, we believe that authenticity is a key belief. Making informed decisions and utilizing a systemic, clear, consistent set of expectations that support fidelity of implementation, practice, and operations. Inclusivity. We value diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe it is our responsibility to create conditions that, again, you'll see this phrase, promotes personal excellence and a sense of belonging for all students. Also, we believe in collaboration. We value partnerships, input, and feedback with our internal and external stakeholders. And you'll see there's a unique word here, community, but it has the emphasis on unity. Our schools are the heart of our community here in Sylvania, and it is the shared responsibility of our school community and families to educate our children. And this is a new mantra to our district, 12 rooms, 1 house. It has been said in the past to me, and those of you who have heard this quote before, when I came to the district, it was told to me that we are not a school district, we are a district of schools. And we really want to bring back the sense of unity, that we are one community, one school district. 12 rooms that we really work together, we intersect together. We have 7 elementary buildings that feed into 3 junior highs, that feed into 2 high schools. So we're always going to have a cross-section. And we really believe in a sense of collective pride for our students. I will say this was another tenet that we heard from our students who participated in the process, that the sense of quote-unquote rivalry between our 2 high schools, they have really become more and more uncomfortable as they feel it's taken on a life of its own. And so they really want to have more of a connection of we are Sylvania schools and we have 2 high schools, but a sense of we are in this together. One of the things we've already rolled out is, instead of the famous or traditional rivalry week, we are having Sylvania Schools Spirit Week, which sends a different message of we're here together, we're celebrating together as one community, with 2 of our high schools in competition with one another.
And real quick, those were comments that came from students?
Students.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yes. I think, Jill, you were there for that.
Yeah.
And we also have a belief in continuous improvement, that we must be adaptive and responsive to the changing educational landscape to ensure that our students are future ready. And that has, we'll speak more to that when we get into the teaching and learning aspect of our plan, but it really is what do our students need to be prepared for life when they walk across the stage, albeit career, albeit college, or the military, or entrepreneurship. This is something that we really are having to look at as we look at what new or employers in the field are expecting from our students as they graduate, and how we make sure our students have the tools to be successful. So now we're going to move into the goal areas of our strategic priorities, of which out of our strategic plan there are 5. We have teaching, learning, and innovation, social, emotional, and mental well-being of students, culture, climate, and communication, facilities, and then of course we'll wrap it up with fiscal planning and responsibility. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Carla, Melissa, and Laura, who co-chaired along with Cheryl, and I also believe Julie Sanford, correct? She participated. Yep. Okay. I will hand this to you. Thank you.
So our team was made up of educators, both both administrators and teachers. And what we did, because when we started, it was close to the end of the year. So we started with an entire team in May. And then because it was summer, we gave everyone 3 choices for the next meeting. So we made sure everyone met, but they met at different times. So what we didn't know at the time, but we learned in the fall, was that there was some confusion, because the first group would have an idea, and then as the groups continued, the idea would change a bit. So we didn't always have the same outcome as we thought we had, so the first group didn't always get the answer that they thought, that, we didn't put up exactly what they wanted. So when we came together at the 3rd meeting, we discussed that and we tried to pull everything back together so we had one voice in the end. So it started out with a great idea that everybody could pick their time, but then we found out maybe that wasn't the best thing to do after all. So our task, we thought, we started with where we are. So what data did we have that we were looking at, and where did we want to be in 5 years? We talked about the teaching area, the learning area, and innovation and technology. So we took all those 3 and divided them up as we went along. So with that said, what I put is where we are from the meeting that we just had in the fall. So I know you've all seen the strategic plan. So our big 3 overarching goals was number 1, recruit, return, and retain qualified staff. So some of that fell into the HR department, some of that stayed with us, but that was our overarching idea when we started, that we wanted to make sure we not only hired great staff, but we continued with professional development to keep good staff as we moved along. Our second one was consistent student-centered environment, and that is for the next 5 years, we look at curriculum and we look at how our students are being treated in the classroom. Then the third overarching goal was MTSS, and that was multi-system support for all groups, including all subgroups. So that was what you've kind of seen from Dr. Motley all along when she showed you the draft of the strategic plan. When we met in the fall, we started with our number 1 goal, and that was to make sure that our administrators were instructional leaders. And that's what we thought we were looking at, as you would see in the big overall arching strategic plan. That was our first goal, was PD for our administrators. But as we discussed this with the team, they didn't want this top-down effect. They didn't want the administrators having this PD and then kind of telling them what was happening. So after a 2-hour discussion, their belief is they would like to have a district PD that we would all be on the same page. What does good education look like? So what is the administrator going to see when they look at the classroom, and what is the teacher going to do in the classroom? So our first goal is to look around, state, whatever, to find professional development that everybody can begin on the same page, what we expect to see in each building at all times. Then the next step that we're looking at is which one, I'll just, as a side conversation, when we started this, many of the people on our team who have been in Sylvania for years know and understand that we're a great district. But after our 2-hour conversation, they said, we really don't know what we don't know. We really would like to look outside of our district and see if there's anything that we should be adding. So with that, our first visit will be to Marysville School District, because they are doing a partnership with the Ohio Department of Education and Ohio and Knowledge Works, and it's a curriculum that's called Ohio Personalized Learning Network. And there's actually, the state has hired so many people throughout the state, and we actually have one here in our area at the county who is paid for by the state, and they are working through this Ohio Personalized Learning Network. And basically, from our understanding from our first meeting, this would be that every student starts educationally where they are, and we continue working through still the standards, still all the expectations, but more at their speed and more that they understand all of the curriculum before they move forward. Again, this is just the first district we're looking at, and we just want to get some ideas of what's out there, if we're doing everything we can possibly be doing, or if there's more we should be doing. So that's kind of the direction our committee has gone today.
This conversation really came from our discussions about being future ready and innovation, which is how they came to that.
So if you also look at, we've taken the steps in the big strategic plan, and we've started working through some of them. So some of them was department level meetings, grade level meetings. We're looking at course offerings. We're looking at, is everything aligned with the standards? We're looking at the age of our textbooks/subscriptions to see if we're on target there, if we need to do anything differently. We're analyzing instructional decisions. So, and Mr. Zeroff knows more about this than I do. Every other principals meeting, we will be looking at building data and seeing what direction we need to go and moving forward. Districts started that already in the spring. They've continued it through the summer. Some are working on it already this fall. So we're really trying to make sure that we have all groups being educated to the fullest. So again, our long-term goal is to hire the best staff, continuous improvement or continuous PD, because something else we learned is we kind of do some PD one and done. And then when we hire new people, they're not familiar with what we've already taught. So we don't want it to be one and done. We want to make sure all of our new staff is continually up to date on what we're doing. And we want our technology to mirror the needs of the students. We don't want it to be the technology we think is important. We want it to be the technology that the students need, as Dr. Motley said, to be future ready. And we said, you know, back to the beginning, that we're all on the same page of what our expectations are. We feel like if we all know what everybody expects, we all expect the same, we'll all win at the end. Any questions for our part?
I just have one suggestion, if I may. I know today we met with Ms. Hoffman and Ms. Conklin about our report card data and looking at similar districts. And it was ironic that some of the districts that we are most similar to are not in Northwest Ohio, but in Northeast Ohio.
Right.
It may behoove us, when we're starting also to look at what other districts are doing, is to look at that list and maybe look at visiting those districts who have a similar population, similar size, and similar demographic. And see if they're doing something that we can learn from, or also we can take to them and they can learn from us.
Because a lot of times, if you go somewhere and we already think we're doing better than they are, or we are doing better than they are, we still learn from that. And we still
Absolutely.
get ideas from that. So we definitely can do that, because Julie has our top 20.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Carl. So as far as the social, emotional, and mental well-being of students, I call this team members / task force. I'll get into the task force piece at the end of my portion, but our members were Dan Greenberg, teacher, Melissa McDonald, an administrator, Alex Thornton, counselor, Kyle Lacey, administrator, Liz Casey, Renee Stack, Kate Hank, our counselors, Hannah Mutrix, school psychologist, Jill Johnson is a board member, Julie Turner and Tammy Goulding are both community members, and then myself. We met 6 times starting back in May, and before I get into those 6 meetings, I'm just going to touch on them briefly, but I do want to thank the teachers and the entire committee, first of all, but especially the teachers and counselors and psychologists whose school year ended May 27th. 4 of our meetings took place in between June and July, and I didn't come up with a great idea that Carla's group did and gave options. In order for all of us to stay together, we picked a date and said, here's what we're meeting, and those people were outstanding and showing up. And I think it really shows the work ethic they have and how they want to help move this process forward. Our process was a little bit of a struggle early on. It was a challenge, I'll be very honest. This is the first time since I've been in this district, or any district actually, involved in a strategic plan where social, emotional, and mental health was one of the overall sub-goals. I think it's always one of those things we address in the other goals, but to actually focus on it as a topic became a little bit of a challenge, especially those first couple meetings. We came in with an agenda that we never touched, and it was a lot of venting on things that we needed, and I think it turned into some of the things that teachers and staff wanted, and administrators as well. So we finally did break it down after about 2 meetings. We just said, hey, we have issues, we have systemic issues that we need to address, as most districts do when it comes to mental health of students. What do we have, and then what do we need as we move forward? So with that being said, we came up with the overall goal that we will create a social emotional systems of supports for both students and staff within the next 5 years. So at the end of the 27 school year, if we're in the same place 5 years from now, we'll have these items in place where if we come up with a new strategic plan, we're not venting about things for 2 meetings. We can see how we can refine those goals and sub-goals we have in place. Sub-goals we came up with were curricular programs, staffing, essential responsibilities and job descriptions, student wellness, and staff wellness. Even though the overall goal of the topic is well-being of students, as we're all well aware, if we don't have a positive well-being within staff, that's going to have an impact on those students. It can have some negative effects on the district, and that's why we focused on staff as well. Some priorities for this school year, or some immediate needs, and some of these have been completed as we talked this summer. One, we want a consistent, I put digital because that's what we're going to, but a consistent PBIS curriculum for our elementary grades. We do have that, and I'll talk more about that as we get into this. Go ahead.
PBIS.
Positive Behavior Intervention Systems.
Thanks.
We also want to connect with our staff, parents, and students to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. And then we want to evaluate, the feedback that we've received and make a recommendation. I say for the junior high for the 23-24 school year, but it could also be if we make changes to our elementary curriculum as well. For staffing, one of the big issues that needed to be an immediate fix, and we wanted to take on, and we've addressed this as well, was to address the AP testing in our high school. That's just the actual testing for advanced placement is a 3-week process in May. And that doesn't include the other 3 weeks it takes for registration, facilitating the tests, sorting the packets, finding an appropriate space, etc. That was falling on our guidance counselors in our high schools, and it was taking them out of their day-to-day jobs of working with kids and meeting their needs for about a month and a half, starting in the spring. So we've made a change to that going into this school year. That's going to come off our guidance counselors. That's going to be taken on from administrators, whether it be our student data and assessment director, as well as support from each of the building teaching and learning administrators, but something where we're keeping our counselors involved with the social emotional aspect of our students, not on AP testing. We want to continue this year to evaluate in-house staffing relative to national and state recommendations, as well as local staffing in our surrounding districts on what they have in place for social emotional needs of students. Essential responsibilities and job descriptions. Another one that was an immediate fix that I'm happy to say we've taken care of was to establish and follow a substitute protocol with least impact on school counselors. After we came back from COVID, or even during COVID when we were in session, we were short on subs, and Josh is well aware of that as a building principal as well as the HR director, human capital director, where we had to have a lot of teachers step up in our building to cover those empty classes. The problem with some of that was we had counselors leaving their office to go fill classes as well. We've realigned that hierarchy where those counselors are a little bit later in the list, so we can hopefully keep them, again, focusing on social emotional needs instead of substituting. I know our sub pool is better. I don't even know if we've had to get into too many teachers filling at this point, so hopefully that's eliminated itself. If not, counselors will fall farther down in that hierarchy, like I said. We want to audit and evaluate the job descriptions of the roles focused on mental health. A lot of those that are listed are new ones. Our counselors and psychologists have been in place, but we are, within the last year, the last 12 months, we've hired a social worker, a psychiatric nurse, and then a behavior analysis through Laura. So working with our student support services, let's evaluate what those people are doing. Let's compare that to their roles, responsibilities, and job descriptions, and make changes this year as we move forward with that for mental health. I put staff wellness before student wellness, even though student wellness does come first in our goals. Another thing we did is that we wanted to put in place right away, we actually did it the last couple of weeks, is audit and evaluate the overall well-being of staff members. I know Melissa McDonald and Student Support Services has been working with Beyond Healthcare. I know Laura led that initiative of bringing them in for support. It's a 1 in 5 recharge and connect. It's a support they offer virtually to staff 2 times a year, as well as 30-minute monthly mindfulness sessions. I know we had our first one of those last week. We've also sent the survey out for our staff as well, just to see how they're doing and how they're feeling mental health wise. We'll continue to evaluate that. A couple other things we want to do is this year is to reestablish the wellness committee initiatives. I know Dr. Motley's been involved with that even last spring. And then remove the stigma from our EAP program, our employee assistance program. I think a lot of our employees feel, and I would as well, I'll be blunt, if I was recommended, if I was struggling with things outside of school or even school-related things that had an impact on my mental health, and I was told, hey, why don't you go talk to HR and see what assistance they could give you, I think that immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm struggling, and I'm looked at as a bad employee. And that was kind of the consensus of our committee. So we want to work on getting some more communication out on what that EAP program is, what it can provide. It is a proactive, positive way to connect with staff rather than always being reactive. So we're going to work with human capital on that. And then as we've done the last couple years, offer mental and health and wellness options for staff at our annual PD day that's coming up on November 8th. What are some things we can get involved in? I know Melissa and Laura, again, are working with Beyond Healthcare 1 and 5 on some options that we can have for teachers on that day. Student wellness is a little bit different, and it's more of a work in progress. It's one of our sub-goals that we don't have any immediate fixes for. I think we have a lot of quality strategies in place with our counselors, our psychologists, with the psychiatric nurse we've added, a social worker, the Beyond Healthcare. So we have a lot of those things in place, but we also want to work with an outside agency, and I'm going to talk about them here a little bit before we dive deeper into evaluating student wellness. Renee Stack, as most of you may know, she is a counselor at Stranahan. She's working on a doctoral program right now at the University of Toledo on mental health and social emotional needs of students. And we actually had Dr. Wendy Cochran and Dr. Brandon Wood. They came in from the University of Toledo. Southview applied for a grant about a year ago where they came in and worked with just strictly Southview's PBIS system and how they can move forward as a building. And they came in during some of that grant time and spoke with our group. One of the things they talked about is before you just throw this survey out to students and where they're at with their needs, and we know those on a daily basis, like I said, with the interaction between counselors and psychologists, etc. Before we find this, I'll just call it an epidemic that there's a mental health issue with sophomores, we want to make sure we have some responsive services before we just send this out, we get this feedback, and then it's like, okay, now what? Not saying we're not going to stay responsive to our students, we do that every day, and I keep repeating that, but we want to work with them, hopefully them, but we'd like to get some more feedback from an outside group. They would be great. They're willing to contract with us. They have familiarity with the district working with Southview. Obviously, Renee has a little bit of pull now. Hopefully, being a student there, we can work with them on how we can better meet the needs of our students when it comes to student wellness for this school year. Just the last couple items. Essential actions that take place by the end of this year. I know I said in the beginning that it was our strategic plan team as well as our task force. Those 11 members along with myself, and I'm thankful for this, and I've told them that. But it was one of those things where we put in a lot of hard work coming up with these goals and sub-goals. But the positive is, I think even more positive than doing that work, is we're all going to stay together and continue to do, like we said a couple times this summer. The easy work's done. Now we have the goals set, if you guys board approve them, but now we have to focus on the hard work and addressing these needs and the sub-goals in our district. So I'm happy to say everybody is willing to stay together and start diving. We have our next meeting on Thursday, so we're not just done with this work. We're going to start diving into the goals. So we're going to continue to work with union and district and school personnel, all those people on our committee to implement an effective system of supports for students involving curriculum, staffing, essential responsibilities, and student staff wellness by the end of the school year. That ties in with our short-term goal is to focus on immediate items that can be addressed to meet the needs of our students. And then the long-term goal kind of goes back to our overall goal. Where are we going to be 5 years from now? Our goal long-term wise is to have a reliable system of supports for students and staff in Sylvania schools by the end of the 27 school year, that we're not banging our head against the wall trying to come up with who will have them in place as we move forward. So that's social, emotional, and mental well-being of students.
Tim?
Jill, I didn't know if you had anything before.
Oh, go ahead.
I have nothing to add. You
Okay.
covered it quite well.
Thank you.
I wanted to know, did you all also, I believe you spoke about this with partnerships, for example, with SPA, which Julie, you're on SPA. Was there conversation with partnering with agencies within?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We'll
Okay.
continue to do that. But as far as like the student wellness piece, we're probably gonna, SPA could be a part of that. They're a partnership now when it comes to.
Right. But maybe invite them to the table.
Absolutely.
I'm sure they would appreciate
Oh,
that.
they would, yeah.
I
They
just-
would be completely on board.
Yep.
Question, in your conversations and in the goal planning, and this may be actually something that happens and I'm not aware of it, is there professional development for teachers in terms of, I mean, they're sort of the first line
Yes.
of defense with
Yeah.
students, and educating teachers on what, you know,
On what to look out for,
Right.
things of that nature.
or, I mean, I think there's obviously mental health stigma associated with all kinds of, I don't know, just things, stigma breaking, education
Yeah,
type of,
those are some things we'd like to look into for our PD day coming up in
Okay.
November. It's tough though, and we've talked about this in our committee, and I think people who've worked with mental health know it, like, you don't walk around with a cough, or the sniffles,
Right.
or it's a silent
That's a good way to put
issue
that.
that we, and it's really hard if kids aren't gonna talk about it. I mean, we have
Well-
to find ways to connect with those kids
And
who
the
are
other-
facing those issues, and staff for that matter.
the other piece is parent support. I know we're supporting, and I know by supporting students, we're supporting parents, but I think there's a lack of parents who may be struggling like with their children, and whether it's anxiety or eating disorders or other mental issues going on. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I call?
Absolutely.
So,
Hopefully and I know it's only one, and I know Melissa McDonald's meeting with Perrysburg this week, who just hired their second, but we did finally get a social worker that can hopefully help with those interactions with families and resources.
I mean, going to my first question, I guess, I'm hoping that we're looking at, you know, do parents say, okay, hey, my kid's got anxiety, or hey, my kid, do they go to a teacher and divulge that without coming across as, hey, I want you to treat my kid special, or hey, I want you to give my kid some, which nobody really wants. I just want you to be aware, and how teachers react to that. And,
If I may, one of the actions that Tim talked about is that partnership and that collaboration with Beyond Healthcare. So Timberstone is kind of serving as our pilot building for that this year. And what we did is they did a building survey, and then based on that data, we built the services for that building, and that included staff training. So one of the needs because we're one house, we have 12 rooms, but the needs might be different in those
Sure.
rooms. So one of the needs that arose from that staff was more information and training on like trauma-informed care, for example. So based off that survey that we used to implement that tier of support in the building, Timberstone was able to reach outside of Beyond Healthcare, and they brought in the ESC of Lake Erie West to provide, it's going to be a year-long cohort specifically focused on trauma-informed care. Another thing is it's with that partnership with Beyond Healthcare that we're implementing, it supports family involvement as well. So it's like making those school-based connections, but then being another layer of support to be able to have like, if the need is there, what sorts of outside groups are necessary if there's a need that extends beyond the school day. So.
Our teachers have had training in different buildings at different levels, so I know we're trying to make it cohesive across. They participated in the trauma book study through the ESC, and the ESC now has a person that works directly with Lucas County families for resources for families.
great, thank you.
So our plan, and I'll speak for Melissa here, our plan with the implementation of Beyond Healthcare at Timberstone is to kind of, let's build it, let's go slow to go fast, let's build it, let's create, because this is something brand new that we've never done in Sylvania before, let's kind of package it and then be able to replicate it. So we can replicate it faster than we can build it, but we want to take the time to build it well so that we can say the next building, okay, here's, we've implemented it with Fidelity, we've packaged it, this is the script. And even though it might look a little bit different because everything's going to start with that building survey, we talk about what is on our buffet of services, our buffet of services, and then we can implement it more quickly.
Great, thank you.
All right, I am going to talk about our priority area of culture, climate, and communication. Those are the committee members. We had a pretty diverse group on there, board members, SCA members, OPC members, and we tried to stretch it across quite a bit of classifications. You'll even see we brought in some people from transportation as well to try to get input from all the relevant stakeholders. We had a meeting in April, and like Tim had mentioned his very first meeting, it really became, I had to tailor it down to try to refocus everyone, but they really were looking on some of the pitfalls that we have experienced, some of the things that we need, some of the things that are missing, some of the past things that people just weren't happy with. And that was in regards to a lot of the communication that was going on. One thing that are in the notes, and I forgot to mention, so Amy and Dawn Watson co-chaired that committee with me. Give credit where credit's due there. What we did come out of that first meeting though, and I have it in the notes here, and one said that climate and culture are completely tied to communication. And so I think we've realized that some things that came out of that meeting that were missing, we noticed with the changeover, folks didn't know who to call. So little simple things that they weren't sure when they needed something who to call. They even mentioned that we were supposed to have a district directory. We haven't had that for a long time. And then a few of the other kind of sidebar conversations in that first meeting were in regards to establishing.
Josh, I did have
Yes.
just a sample. This is our old one, and it's from 2021, and before that, everything was online,
Yes.
I do believe.
And we'll talk about the directory in a minute because we're already in the process of moving forward with some of that. Some of the things that we were looking at is establishing operating standards and procedures, as well as long-term wise looking at things like employee handbooks and those types of things, just so that the communication is clean and clear, which I think was what they were really talking about that was lacking. After that April meeting, again, we had lots of discussions, but nothing was really formal. We met the very next month in June, and we were tasked at hand in June. We had to and needed to walk out of that meeting with our goal and some immediate small-scale action steps. So we did. So in the June meeting, we landed on our goal, developed a plan that will strengthen internal and external communication, maximize community partnerships, and promote an educational environment in which individuals feel supported, connected, empowered, and respected. How we're going to do that? The committee is going to continue to stay together and work on the action steps that you'll see here in a few minutes. We're going to have to meet here at the end of September or beginning of October to find out exactly where we are and how we're going to accomplish some of these action steps I'm going to show you here in a minute. We felt really good leaving in June where we were at. We had a small handful of action steps, so we had a jumping off point. We knew that the majority of our committee were going to scatter over the summer. And what we didn't want is, it sounds like what happened probably with your group, is to have people moving in all these different directions. We want to stay together as a whole to try to tackle these action steps. So these are it. And I'm glad that we are going to meet in September and October, because what happened is when we left our meeting in June, there were a handful of action steps. And over the summer, that handful grew a lot. Because, I don't know if you noticed the trend, what happened is all these other committees and all these other priority areas have these great ideas and great things that we need. And what happens is that they tend to fall under the culture, climate, and communication portion of that priority area. So these are the action steps that we have. There's quite a few of them. I don't want to read them word by word, but you can see them up there. A couple I'll highlight. There's the one, update and distribute a district staff directory annually. Again, this is one that's not a very hard task to do. It's just a task that needs to be done. And Cheryl is already working on the front end of that to develop the digital portion of that. When the digital portion is done, we'll then get hard copies out to folks. Problem that we had in the past with that, just as a sidebar, is that we would do it and then things would change. People would move, people would move buildings, and it didn't really live anywhere. Well, I'm going to take ownership of that. It should live on the second floor with me. So we'll be in charge of, once it is up and running, to make sure that it's adequate and updated. The big one on there is to evaluate the current communication processes. That's, I think, one of the things that the committee is going to have to tackle this year is how are we communicating out to people? What are we communicating them out? Is it to the right person? What avenue is it going through? Review, analyze, and update job descriptions. Tim had mentioned part of that. Again, that's going to fall under that. Consistent operating procedures. Review hiring practices. We want to make sure that we are able to and can hire the best candidates that are out there and then retain them. We do know there is that teacher shortage that's out there, so we're going to have to evaluate how those processes work. This is some long-term goals on this slide. You can see develop and publish a new employee handbook. That is something that's going to take some time to look at and work with both of our unions to make sure that what we're putting in there is what we have in practice. Again, really developing consistent standard operating procedures, which I think is really needed. And one thing that we can tackle, District Wellness Committee is on here as well. So that's part of ours as we jumped on there too. Big thing is there's a lot of items on here and a lot of work that's going to be in front of us. So the next big question we have is how are we going to do this? And that's where the committee is going to reconvene in September and October. We will start looking at our action steps and figuring out, all right, who's going to do this, when is it going to be done, and who's going to be held accountable to do it, so that none of these fall off. We want to make sure we feel that all of these are important, and we need to tackle all of them over the next 4 to 5 years of the strategic plan. What do I got?
Thank you.
Okay. Brad, will you facilities?
Okay, so for our facilities plan, this is the group that was on our plan. As you can see, we had quite a diverse population on our group. We tried to have a representative from high schools, junior highs, elementaries, OPSI. We had a student that was wonderful, as well as a community member. One thing with our Northview student that actually was on our group, I have to say, wonderful young lady. She was very open, very honest from a student side of what she would like to see in the schools that would help develop our facilities and continue to grow the learning in the ways that the students want to see it grow. So she was wonderful, so I thank her very much for that. Mr. Feller was our board member on there as well. Okay, so our first meeting was April 27th. During our first meeting, we kind of got together, spent a couple hours discussing, which way do we want to go? What way do we want to go with our facilities? As everyone knows, our facilities, the majority of them were built back in the 50s. And the things that we are doing these days with learning, teaching, we're not really accounted for when our facilities were built. So this is something that we had to look at. So we discussed some of the issues with the facilities. Being at the HR, what do we have to do to upgrade them, so on and so forth. We decided that we needed to put into place a new work order system and have a building assessment done. So our building assessment, which has ever been done in the district, we had all 14 buildings in our district assessed by a company that went through, tagged everything with numbers that will tie into our work order system so we can track if items are breaking a lot, do we need to replace them, how much money are we spending on them as a district. This assessment will also give us average lifespan of, for example, heating and air units. We'll know that this brand of unit lasts around 30 years. We're getting close to that 30 years on that unit. We need to, do we sink the money into it, or do we just replace it and get new? So we have that. How do we get caught up on outstanding issues? So as a district, we've kind of been on that I guess repair mode. So once it breaks, we repair. How do we get out of that mode? How do we get caught up on the things that are broken, and how do we be proactive and not reactive on everything? So we're looking to look out and look for issues before they break, and then going to fix those issues. How do we keep all the stakeholders informed? Not only our teachers, not only our board members and our administrators, but the community. How do we keep them informed? The community kind of mindset is, we're spending money. We have all this money. We can spend this money. We can spend this money. But how are we spending this money? Are we spending it wisely? What do we need to spend it on? So if we can create something that will inform these community members, whether it's a website or something, of how we are spending our money each year through our facilities. What are we looking to do moving forward? We can look and say next year we're looking to put this, this, and this into this school, which will create this, this, and this for the students. So that's a nice piece, I think. We met again in May to kind of solidify our goals and our action steps for these items that we talked about in April. So in May, we came up with our goals, which is understand the scope of our facilities, the condition of each facility to determine future needs. Our strategy, assess and evaluate each of our facilities via a district-wide audit, which that was kind of our building assessment. But with that building assessment, we're going to do annual audits to come through, see how we are doing on the assessment, and when do we need to do another one to keep up with where we are. Our facilities committee is going to meet twice a year. This document is going to be a very fluid document for facilities. As we fix things, other things are going to happen, other things are going to go on. We're going to come up with new plans for learning that may require different facility upgrades. So, it's going to be very fluid. It's going to be something that we're going to update twice a year on our facilities plan. So kind of our action steps, as you can see, and I'm going to touch on some of the really important ones, is we're going to study on the learning space. We're going to study learning spaces in the facilities, meet with the principals, meet with the teachers, see what the needs are down the road, see what the 5-year plan kind of thing is for the schools, for their curriculum, and how we need to have that ready from a facility standpoint. Our building assessment, we have had them come through already. Alpha came through, did our building assessment. We should have the results of that in February. So at that point, we'll be able to sit down, Dr. Motley, myself, some of the board members if you would like, and create a plan as to where do we need to spend our money, what years do we need to spend it in, and look at that. We're assessing all of our operations to see what can be done in-house. If we can do it in-house and not bring an outside contractor in, we're saving money. So that's something we've really focused on, even in our hiring efforts, is what skill set does this person bring to the table? Is it a different skill set than someone we already have hired? That way we can do more things in-house. We're going to be focusing on things that are not cosmetic for the next few years. Yeah, you'll have your cosmetic items that need to be done, but we need to have a larger focus now. We need to have a focus on getting things up to where they need to be for a teaching and learning and a technology standpoint from all of for our students. So we're going to cut out a lot of the cosmetic wants, and we're going straight to the needs. If this needs to happen, it's going to the front burner.
And I would also say in regards to safety as well, correct?
Yes, yep.
Because I know we have some chairs at Southview that we need.
Yes, we do.
In the auditorium, we need
Yeah.
to replace some seats.
Everything we are going to do is going to be based on a couple of things. It's going to be based on safety, learning, and then
Cosmetic.
the more cosmetic items. So safety is top priority, learning, and then cosmetics. So our new work order system that I spoke about that will be tying in with our building assessment, that will begin on the 26th of this month. We actually just had our training on it. So it's a wonderful system. We've spoken to a lot of different school districts that use it, and they're very happy with it. And I think it's going to allow us to operate more efficiently and more effectively. We're going to create a decision rubric that we're going to use annually to kind of base everything that we do off of. So every year when we look at this, we're going to create that rubric. We're going to decide what is necessary and what is unnecessary off of the rubric, and what can we afford and what can't we afford now. I've already discussed creating the specific plan to be transparent with the board, staff, and public. We're establishing a district PM plan.
Preventative maintenance for those in the
Preventative
audience.
maintenance, sorry.
That's okay.
Preventative maintenance plan. If we have proper preventative maintenance, we make sure everything's greased that needs to be greased, make sure everything's clean that needs to be cleaned in a timely manner. That should eliminate a lot of the retroactive repair situations that we're having. Keep it up, keep it good, extend the life of our units to help save us money. And that's basically what I have.
I have a
Any
couple
questions?
questions. Yep, I have a question.
Shoot.
The committee members, is there a reason like there were no teachers or SEA members? Did they just not want on this committee?
Yeah, nobody was interested really. I mean, we invited even more. We invited probably double what was on there, and times didn't work out for anyone.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know.
We actually had 4 more students we invited as well. We would like to have had a student from Southview, and those students weren't available either. It was track season at the time when we were meeting.
Right. It just surprises me because I get so much feedback from teachers
Yeah.
about issues in the building.
Yeah,
in the
teachers
facility,
are going to get more involved as we're going down the road. When we start doing the assessment with where we go to the buildings and we assess each individual building with the principal and the needs, that's when we're going to get teachers more involved with that as well to see what they need.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're not going to put Adam on the spot, but just for the fact that folks know that Adam just joined us as a treasurer on August 1st, and not to put words in your mouth, Adam, but I know you do plan to add a component to the strategic plan once you kind of get settled in your position and have an opportunity to assess our financial situation beyond what you already have. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. I definitely look at it as what can I do financially to help support the district initiatives in the strategic plan. Build budgets in collaboration with the departments and the buildings to support the need of their work year in and year out. So excited to jump on board, be transparent, and communicate with the public on where our money comes from, where it goes, and support our students and staff.
Well, thank you. And for those who may be joining us later or watching this at a later time, I do want to announce that we will provide a State of the Schools presentation on Tuesday, October 18th. That meeting is scheduled for 5:30, and it will be in the Northview Theater, where we will again go over components of our strategic plan with other nuances as well. I believe Adam's going to give a financial update during that presentation, so we invite those, our families, community members, stakeholders to join us at that event, as well as our board members.
What time is it?
I want to say it's 5:30. Righty. Hopefully you got the save the date from the doodle poll. If not, we'll make sure you get it.
I don't think I did.
I didn't get it. Maybe not. You didn't get one?
I knew I got the doodle poll, but I
Doodle
never
The
poll, we
original
decided
doodle poll,
18th.
but this is when I.
This
now
is the
when I-
other one.
Yeah, I didn't know when it was.
Okay.
I didn't get any results.
We'll make sure you get the doodle polls and make sure you get it in your calendars for sure.
I just put it in my calendar.
You're good. Thank you. We're good. All righty. This doodle polls, I tell you, they're going to be the death. All right, Mr. Feller, that's the conclusion of my superintendent's report. Thank you to our team members. Thank you to all the teachers and community members who participated in this process. It's been a year-long undertaking, and we do appreciate the input from everyone involved, including our own board members, again, community members, business owners, the ministerial folks in our community, parents. Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you.
Great, thank you. This is our first opportunity for public participation for agenda items. I'm guessing no. So Dr. Miley, we're back with you.
Thank you, Mr. Feller. I recommend item 4.1, which is the acceptance of gifts. we have a donation of a baritone horn at Timberstone from Mrs. Susan Krantz.
I'll move approval. I second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.2 for approval. You'll note overnight field trips for students from our buildings. You'll see the first one is for Southview Cougarettes to perform at the Alamo Bowl, which I think the superintendent should be allowed to go. Also, we have our Northview High School cross-country players who will race in Culver, Indiana. And then we also have 11 Northview school dance team members to perform also at the Alamo Bowl, which is in Antonio, Texas, December 26th.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.3, the approval to make a revision to the exempt salary index and schedule for the position of social worker.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.4, which is an agreement with the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center. This specific agreement is for a hearing impaired classroom and related services for speech therapy.
I'll move approval.
I second.
Discussion. Quick question. This and the next three, these three are all different?
Yes, they
different
are.
services?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Okay, just want to clarify. Anything else? All right, call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.5 for approval. This is another service agreement for a hearing impaired classroom and also related service.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.6, another agreement with the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center. And this agreement is between us and the Center for the Services Provided at the Independence Education Service Center.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yep.
Tammy, Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend approval of item 4.7, which is an agreement between our district and the Green Options for Autism of Lucas County.
I'll move approval. I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.8, a memorandum of understanding with GradPoint through our district and with the MOU with SCA. This is an annual item for our GradPoint coordinators.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend approval for item 4.9, which is a transportation contract as noted.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
This is for transportation from last school year,
It is for a special needs student.
and so why wouldn't we have entered into this?
Previous.
Yeah.
I'll have to pass that to Tim. Do you recall? I know we were working with Laura on that.
No, we were, and she just left, but I think we were paying them retroactively
Actively.
on this, because they were transporting their students.
To Archbold, I believe.
So it's a reimbursement from last year?
Correct.
Did we not know about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's my question as to like. did
That's
they
a good
come to us
question, and I
later?
wish I would have had Laura right here because we did talk about it. And I had the same question if it was this year or last
Well,
year.
it says it's.
We discussed it.
when
It was last school
It
year.
says it's last year, so my
21,
question
22.
is, you would normally enter into this agreement beforehand. And,
Yeah.
and know, like, we're saying, hey, we can't transport, they're saying we'll do it for this much money.
For
So
some reason,
this just seems like a lot of money for.
It does.
and we didn't know about it?
and we discussed this, and I'm going to ask the gentleman in the room to help me with my recollection, because I want to say it was missed, because this was during the transition in which our former transportation director left the district, and I believe this may have been missed and should have been placed on the board agenda. But I do know it was something that we are paying retroactively.
I mean, yeah, because it was signed on
Yep.
July 5th, and the
Of this school
contract
year.
says, yeah, of this
Mhm.
school year, it says this is retroactive.
It is.
To October 25th, so I guess I have questions about this.
Well, we can table it and revisit it, because I think it's appropriate that you
Yeah,
have your
I would
answer,
like-
your
yeah.
more information,
And I
absolutely.
guess Mike, are we gonna have this again this year?
Right, are they doing it again this year?
I can't speak to that, I don't know the individual child's placement for this year, because it would be noted in their IEP, but it could be a possibility, I'm sure, depending on if the child is still there.
I mean, they're just going 10 miles away. One
I
way.
thought it was an Archbold, is
Well, it
not?
says it's
LEAP.
for 10.3 miles one way, 20 miles per day.
It's at LEAP.
Does this have to do, this is more than the payment in lieu statutory amount, so is this because?
And that was my other question, we're paying mileage
Yeah,
and then assessing each day.
is this not payment in lieu of, or is this
It
something
is not
different?
payment in
Right.
lieu
It
of,
has
it
to
is
do
something
with-
different, because it's special
a
needs.
special school?
Yeah, I think.
We can certainly
I think
table
we
it
need
so we
to-
can more information. Can we
Sorry.
note that in the minutes?
Do you wanna just
Yeah.
move to
Adam?
withdraw it?
Yes.
Somebody
probably
just make a motion.
Motion
I
to
will make
withdraw.
a motion to withdraw it and table it for another time.
Thank you.
I'll second. Discussion?
What I will be sure to do is
Yeah.
ask Laura, oh, I'm sorry,
No.
for discussion.
Yeah.
I will ask Laura to provide us with an update this week prior to soup notes, so you have,
And probably Jim too. 'cause
Yeah.
He would have.
know some of the background.
Okay.
Mhm.
Adam, call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 4.10, I recommend administrative stipend for Ms. Devnish.
I'll move approval.
No, second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Feller.
All right, Mr. Tversky, we're with you.
Yes, I am recommending approval of items 5.1 through 5.8 on a consent agenda basis. 5.1 is for hire of social worker. 5.2 is a licensed new teacher. 5.3 are the Aspire Able staff. 5.4 licensed substitute teachers. 5.5 licensed substitute teacher resignations. 5.6 are unpaid leave of absences. 5.7 is licensed extra duty. And 5.8 are licensed RESA mentors.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 5.1 through 5.8.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend items 6.1 through 6.5 on a consent agenda basis. 6.1 are classified new hires. 6.2 are classified resignations. 6.3 is a classified termination. 6.4 classified personal changes. And 6.5 are classified unpaid items.
I'll move approval for items 6.1 through 6.5 on a consent agenda basis.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend approval for items 7.1 through 7.3 on a consent agenda basis. 7.1 are supplemental positions for the 22-23 school year. 7.2 are for student lifeguards. And 7.3 are athletic volunteers for the 22-23 school year.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 7.1 through 7.3.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I had a quick question. I know we've got the junior Cougars football coach, and obviously the season has started. Is that,
He had pre-approval. He has all of this stuff in and had pre-approval of work. We just needed to get board approval.
oh, okay. Okay.
Kristen,
I've heard some comments about that particular coach.
Okay.
Not sure it's appropriate to discuss right now.
Let me know. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, call the roll.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill.
Abstain.
All right, now we're at board committee reports. Kim?
I have nothing tonight. Well, let me make sure. No, yeah, I have nothing. Jill went to Tasmania schools. I didn't get to go because I was
Oh,
Repelling down the building.
rappelling down the building.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
sorry
your
that I
meeting-
had the harder job.
I'm sure your
but-
meeting was much harder. But no, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Julie?
Yeah, you all should have the invitation for the Athletic Hall of Fame through the foundation. We actually have a foundation meeting this week. I'll have more on that next time. So this is October 22nd. If you can attend, let's see, spa, but we had a meeting, actually forgot my notes on our last meeting, but they did talk about, usually they do Red Ribbon Week every year, that they're gonna do it in conjunction this year, sort of with I Love Olander Day, which I think is this upcoming Sunday, and they're gonna have like obstacle courses, so they're kind of shifting what Red Ribbon Week looks like, so.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yep, and I think, oh, and I did go to Collaboration Day. We were invited by Dr. Motley to go to that Focus 3 presentation. Honestly, I went and I was just gonna stay for, like 15 minutes, but it was really good. And so, and I actually, I think I said to Tim, like I thought it would be very valuable. I don't know if anybody else had an opportunity to go, but I thought it would be very valuable for us as a board to do. So, that's all.
What was it?
Focus 3, that it was on Collaboration Day over, like, they offered 2 sessions a day, so it was sort of like building culture and climate in a district and how, honestly, it was way more interesting. Like, I wasn't sure that it was gonna be pertinent to a board member, but I would show up if I'm invited, so I went, and then I ended up having to leave like 10 minutes early.
You didn't wanna
I was
leave.
late to a meeting, but it was really good, so.
That's the E+R=O
Yeah.
on Tim's laptop. It
Yeah,
was,
so I actually
Thank
think we
you for the
should look
feedback.
into, the guys in Texas, it might be cheaper for us to go to Texas than him to
That
come to
makes
us.
sense.
I'm just saying, it might be expensive. That's all I have.
I'm sure it would be helpful.
January. When it's cold.
Yeah.
yeah.
We had a transportation committee meeting last week.
Friday.
I think a lot of those notes were in the soup notes, so you guys all got the highlights, and I forgot my notes. I was gonna bring my notes and I forgot, but the one thing that sticks in my mind is we have right now 61 drivers and 64 routes, but we have a potential 7 starting the training process, so hopefully, knock on wood, they all,
No route cancellations yet.
and no route cancellations this year yet, which is fantastic. So things are looking better. Jill?
Well, ditto to what you just said about the transportation meeting, and also the Sylvania City Services meeting. I've been asked to be on an ad hoc committee to discuss child care,
That's the
and
task
that's
force.
what we are doing right now. So,
I think I'm going to participate on the task force perhaps
The
with,
the after school.
After
visit?
care, is that the
Community
preschool?
It's
Yeah.
CSC.
yeah.
yeah, SCS.
What's the topic? Just the fact that they're not in every school anymore? Or?
We're looking at the provision of services and making sure that they can be adequately provided.
All right, and the second opportunity for public participation, since there's nobody here, I'm assuming no. We do not have executive tonight, so I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. Adam, call the roll.
All in favor?
Julie,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes,
Jill.
Yes.
we are adjourned.